Anybody see that fight? That Ortiz Wilder fight? Man, see, I wanted to get into heavyweights. But damn, man, like I'm 6'3" with some hand speed. Them dudes are 6'7" with hand speed. Accurate. Wilder's accurate when he got you hurt. Didn't throw an uppercut or a left hook all fight. Had Ortiz hurt and he's throwing uppercuts and left hooks on the dot. It's a good fight though. I think you can catch it on YouTube. Catch it while it's hot. I don't know how long it'll be up. Yeah, this will be an interesting video. Kind of a different topic, but I'm using the same meta filters that I normally use. And it's another morning video. People sleep, but I'm gonna go head out. Get some road work in, like I'm boxing, but I don't box. I used to box. Like I said, I got some hand speed. I'd like to think I'd have the defense to tangle with some of the top fighters, but man, that punch accuracy is ridiculous. A guy that's like Wilder's like 6'7" with accuracy. That's atrocious, man. You don't want to deal with that. Man, that was a good fight. But this video, it's going to be about examining the power of white women. There's a bunch of reasons why I'm doing it. Listen to a video. It was China Fox, and she was talking about how by not attacking black women, because the attacks on black men in America are more visible, by not attacking black women, it left them to grow powerful. And I'm listening to that, and I'm thinking, okay. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this video is you're underestimating meaningful power, because people classified as white, I don't care if they're male or female, are more powerful than people classified as black in ways that are meaningful. Now, you can talk about shit that ain't meaningful, and you can, okay, whatever. And I want people to be grounded in that understanding and not try to come up with excuses, because objective power is what you suffer from a lack of. And any type of other type of power that you might throw out there, I'll put objective resources over that any day. And it doesn't have to be that way. That's why I'm doing this video. If you follow the most effective tactics to be powerful, you will be powerful. Another reason why is I had an argument with a black woman on Lipstick Alley. And she was kind of on that same thing, that black girl power stuff. And I'm like, that's a good foundation, but nothing has been built with black girl power of substance that we can give to our children. So it's a rallying cry. It's not a revelation. It's not something you've lived up to. Because she was talking about how they make more money than black men. And I'm like, first of all, that's not true. And then when I showed that black men made a little bit more money than black women, she talked about, well, we live in a patriarchal society. And I'm like, well, black men live in a patriarchal society to some extent. They just don't receive any of the benefits of this patriarchal society because they don't own enough of it. Matter of fact, law by law, the way people are treated, you could argue that we live in a pseudo-matriarchy if you're living in a black neighborhood. And if you're not living in a black neighborhood, you're basically you're in the white man's patriarchy. You don't own it. You don't receive the benefits of it. So what difference does it make to you? Matter of fact, you suffer from the lack of receiving benefits for doing work that, besides tomboys, men are going to do that work. And you're not getting rewarded for men's work adequately, if at all. So the lack of patriarchy shows up. on your face. It shows up in your dwellings. It shows up in your budgets. And it's one of the main reasons you lack power. So I want to look at white women because I'm seeing a lot of power moves, but I'm also seeing that more so than white men, white women want to help melanated people. It's just that they are misguided. And the main reason they're misguided is because melanated people do not know how to, they don't have a political agenda. So people are helping you, they're helping you based on whatever whims that they've come up with, and they don't know your situation as well as you. So they run into the laws of unintended consequences when they help you, and that goes to mostly democratic policy. So in Black Power Meta, I mentioned how the Black family isn't just destroyed by democratic policies, it's also Republican policies, but that's sort of a different issue. Another reason why I'm doing this video is I often hear this sentiment that nobody is going to give you anything. They're not going to give you reparations, so you have to take it, and revolution is the only answer. And that really isn't the best tactic because it's least likely to work. You have a much better chance of getting reparations, especially living in the reparations capital of the world. I'll take it a step further. You have a better chance of getting reparations. You have a better chance of utilizing it to develop objective power than you do winning a revolution. Matter of fact, there's so many reasons that you're not going to win a revolution. I'll just put it like this. I'm not willing to die for no revolution. And the only thing that would change that would be if something were to happen to one of my kids. Then, see, I'm not ready to be maniacal enough to where I'm going to kill white children unless something happens to my kids. And that's just true. I'm telling you the truth. A lot of y'all are the exact same way. You don't have enough in this game to where you're going to risk life in prison and all the regret from killing people's children. But if you want a revolution, you're going to have to think about it from the standpoint of like the IRA. You're going to be hella terrorists. Speaking of IRA and terrorism, another reason why I'm doing this video is because, and I'm not really that far from being done with it, because I'm going to get to a few points, and I'm just going to leave it at that, let you think about it. But another reason why I'm doing this is because, and this sort of relates to the Black Panther movie, the new one, is not seeing Black people controlling nations and making the difficult decisions of controlling nations and running societies. We have this same false impression, and I ran into this with a Trump voter where he tried to tell me that, because I was comparing Trump to like this black chick who had like who raced one lap and was by default the first black female racer or whatever, something like that. I'm like, this is style over substance. She ain't really done nothing, but she's the first, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, shit, you can't criticize style over substance because that's the president and a lot of you motherfuckers voted for him. And somebody tried to defend Trump, talking about he's going to Washington to buck the system. And I'm like, Trump is the system first. I've seen maybe one policy lately, and there's some recent, where I thought, oh, he's going to really try to change things. But for the most part, Trump is business as usual. His policies aren't that different. I mean, anybody that's talking about immigration, and you're only counting new immigrants as immigrants, and not everybody except Native Americans, he's the system. He is the system. But also what I'm seeing is when I hear Black people say that you can't that politics, even though we've been politically impotent, or they're not going to give you anything, even though we mostly vote for a party that is represented by the mule. Like, what do you work in a farm? You expect your donkey to give you something? What's your donkey going to give you? They work for you. So getting reparations isn't a matter of the donkey giving you something. It's you utilizing the paperwork, the donkeys to do the paperwork, the donkeys to do the administration work, so you can give it to yourself. That's how the country works. And when people talk about how they're not going to give you anything, hey, if we actually had a strong political agenda and we were politically savvy for a number of years and there was no inroads, then I'd feel different. Then I'd think, okay, we got to put something together, and we have to maybe start thinking like the IRA, and somebody's going to have some car bombs and all that. We're going to have to get dirty. But we've been completely politically inept since MLK, really, since ending Jim Crow. We've been politically inept. We don't understand politics. We don't have a political agenda. So I'm going to go out and kill white kids because we have no inroads as far as getting reparations. No, we haven't even tried. And it hasn't been on us. It's not our fault we haven't tried. We haven't even been allowed to try until recently. So show me 30 years of political competence and savvy, and if that doesn't work, then we can talk about how we're going to poison people and bomb cars and be terrorists until we get some sort of recompense. That's not the right word, but you know what I mean. Until we get something for all the human rights violations. And we're living in like I've said many times, we're living in the reparations capital of the world. Everything in America is subsidized except for black people. I'll take that back. Sabotage is subsidized. Panaceas are subsidized, but power is starved when it comes to dollars and cents. You got people who have spent all their life, all their taxes have gone to supporting white supremacy. You talk about reparations, and now they want to sound like a conservative for the first time. Like, they start talking about their tax dollars. Well, where were you talking about your tax dollars all the time before that? So, but let me go back to the subject, but I had to give that backdrop. That's one of the reasons I'm talking about this, because white women, more than anybody, they'll give you that vote for reparations. And I say more than anybody, hear me out, because black people, a lot of times you bring up reparations, take a step back and listen to the excuses. They're predictable. They only apply to black people. And that's a product of engineering. And it's also what I consider to be, and I heard this from Allison Tennyson. She's an anti-feminist. And what she said, that a lot of men, they take on or they accept the flattering lie of feminism, and that's that men are all powerful, that men can't be touched, that men are running the show, we live in a patriarchy and all that, and that I think she said that men are omnipotent and anything that they do is their fault. It's nothing stacked against them. And the reason why they accept that is because if they look at the reality, then they gotta work. Then that's like, oh man, we don't have anyone representing us politically. One of the reasons I did not vote for Trump is he didn't say a word about what he would do for men's rights. So I'll go back to that. I'll get back to that. That flattering lie, you have that with black prosperity sermons from the unfit to be called hoteps, the Boyce Watkins. Occasionally, you'll get that from African-centered people. And this is where they're out of touch, and they're not realizing the same thing that Trump voter talking about he's going to buck the system. You created the system, Africans. African-centered people. You created this whole way that civilization works. That was popping in Africa before anywhere. So this notion that you're going to somehow do it much morally better. Yeah, you might be morally better. Looking at history, I'll say you probably were morally better. But the notion that you have to win a revolution, you're lying to yourself. You have to change the system, that you have to change capitalism. You are capitalism. You created capitalism. You created socialism. All the isms existed in ancient African civilizations to medieval civilizations. All the basic isms. And so that means you are the system. You are what you want to destroy. And I mentioned this when I was talking to somebody. I do political activities. Where I was talking to a lady, and I said, you know what? We don't like necessarily, because we're dealing with the whole panacea thing where they chip off some money for some 501c3s. And this money is basically going to, okay, we've got too many people in jail, so we'll create a program where we do blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't really create wealth and the type of power that's needed therewith. So we'll do that. And not a whole lot will happen with it. It'll end up going to people who have degrees on the subject who aren't really as needed of the money. It's not. And even then, just throwing money at stuff doesn't work. And this is coming from somebody who thinks reparations should be top political agenda. The other three points on the political agenda are how to do something with the resources. So I just wanted to throw that out there, however poorly. Now I want to get onto the subject. Because somebody had mentioned assimilating into Western culture. I think somebody in Tariq Nasheed's comments. And again, that's something, you are Western culture. Patriarchy. You are a patriarchy. Africa wasn't, I don't see these crazy ass gender conflicts, but if a patriarchy is, at least how I think it would work for us, is men being rewarded for doing work that women don't want to do, that existed in Africa. And that existed. So if that's all patriarchy is, then you're a patriarchy. So this notion that, and this is what I mean, the flattering lie that you are decidedly more moral, therefore you have to break everything, all that is escapism. Because you pretty much, I think like Baldwin said, I forget that debate he had with the British dude, you are that dastard. You are that son of a bitch. You have negative traits. Are they decidedly worse than anybody? They're better. You have less of them. I'll give you that. But you had to, like if I look at ancient Egypt, Set was celebrated. Skullduggery. It wasn't always, and I'm not going to exaggerate it and say, oh, you stole slaves. I don't really see much slavery in ancient Egypt. I don't really see much slavery in medieval Africa, besides Egypt. Now, medieval Egypt, yeah. Yeah, so medieval Africa, in places where the Ottoman Empire was strong, the Moorish Empire was strong, there was slavery. Now, I had a fella who said, he gave me an example of cognitive dissonance. He said, hey, 42, if you ever start, this was a while ago, it's when I first was on YouTube. He said, if you ever start dealing with white women, you're going to run into a level of cognitive dissonance that you haven't seen before. And you're going to run into it when you're giving information that they're having trouble challenging. And he gave examples of that because he said he was having a debate about domestic violence. And he started giving information and it basically, cognitive dissonance it went to accusing somebody of having hating women or something like that. Which is similar to that whole thing with Killmonger. It's like, that's one of my disagreements with China Fox, because that whole attack on Killmonger is an attack on black women, because that's who's raising the next generation, and they do not want you raising revolutionary-minded people. I'd rather have a different way, but if it was no way but Killmonger, I'd rather have Killmonger. So I definitely consider him to be a revolutionary, and that's why you have 6 hit pieces that I can count on Killmonger from the media, like a lot of it from the black-owned media too. And if it's not black-owned media, it's white-owned, black-face, but it's coming from both. And it specifically attacking black women by saying that Killmonger is a face of not just misogyny, but black women misogyny, which is all about who raises the kids. They do not want you to raise a next generation that's like that. Another example, and this is in response to Nicholas Cruz, and this is me kind of seeing the same thing dealing with white women. And this is mainly I'm getting to the bulk of why I did this video. I was talking to this lady about Nicholas Cruz, and this is on Twitter. It's kind of back and forth. She started talking about how it's related to the violence in men, and I'm like, okay, I'll give you that. When it comes to murder and gun violence, men are definitely pacing women, but this is not related to violence in men beyond that. And I made the point that after like top level murder, blah, 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 or just having gun fixations, men and women are pretty much the same when it comes to violence. And her response was that I had been abused. I'm kind of paraphrasing the conversation, but because there's 3 types of statistics you can't really check when it comes to domestic violence. Men do more of the high-level stuff. Most of it is reciprocal. Statistics that I hear feminists cite the most often would still say that men are victims of domestic violence 43% of the time, or 43% of the victims are men. So it's not even something that they disagree with until you put it in context, because men also are less likely to report domestic violence. So if most of the high-level violence is coming from men are less likely to report it, and 43% of the victims are men, then that means that a lot of, I'd say probably at least half of the low-level stuff, the yelling, pushing, spitting, slapping, well, little slaps. You slap the shit out of somebody, that's a high-level assault. But you know what I mean. The loking up, verbal shit, that's not a men problem. That's a human problem. But the level of, basically, by me saying that she had jumped to the conclusion that I had been abused and I'm jaded. And the reality is not that. I've probably had 20 somewhat significant relationships. All but one have been cool. I've only dealt with one woman that was violent with me. I had one woman who was a hothead, but I wouldn't say that she was violent, because what she did didn't really go that far. But I had another woman who was like that. But again, it goes back to those 3 points, not my individual shit, because individual shit, 1 out of 20 is fine with me. I can walk away from that. As long as you don't have kids with them, you can walk away from the bullshit. But I stacked that together, and I'm starting to see more examples. And then I had another issue where I had mentioned that Hillary Clinton wins going away if she addresses men's rights issues. And I mentioned this in I think a Young Turks comment. And then you have white women again talking about men's rights issues or for white men specifically, and who would not have voted for Hillary anyway. Why wouldn't they? Has Trump said he was going to do anything about him? So if Hillary would have came out and said she's going to address inequalities in family courts, ways in which child support is broken, I think Hillary Clinton wins going away. But what stuck out was she said that they wouldn't vote for Hillary anyway. And I'm like, I voted for Hillary and she didn't even say anything like that. I had a whole bunch of little reasons. I think she was a pretty meh candidate at best. I really don't like her. But with Trump, he was openly racist. And the only reason why people couldn't see it is because they're in denial. And I would rather have somebody that's closeted because at least they have to fake the funk. And what I mean by that is you can go to Hillary and say, hey, Hillary, look at all these human rights violations. We need reparations. And if she says, fuck you, then you say, okay, Hillary, then we're going to vote for Trump. And she loses what she had. With Trump, he never had the black vote. The Republican Party doesn't have the black vote. They have nothing to lose. It doesn't matter what they do. So he can come out and say that he's going to increase stop and frisk and that he's going to open up private prisons and little things that tangibly hurt black people. So I vote for Hillary. At least she has to be somewhat accountable or at risk losing. And I don't argue at all with people who say, well, we didn't get enough from Obama, so fuck Hillary. Blah. Okay, fine. No argument with me. But at least have a political agenda so you can say, okay, we didn't get anything, but they can't point and say, well, what did you want? What are you requiring that we administer? Like, we worked for you. Another reason why I did this video is Brianna Harmon. She recently, you can look her up, confessed or plead to 4 felonies and got no jail time, accusing, I think it was 3 black men of raping her. No jail time. That is objective power. Susan Diane Wojcicki, who owns, well, she doesn't really own it. She's a manager of YouTube. You look at it, if white women can talk, they can say whatever racist shit they want. White men can go awfully far. I mean, have you heard of any white men that have had a channel flag down, maybe a video, whatever, but there is definitely grounds for a class action lawsuit for discrimination. I don't know how far it would go. I'm still working with somebody about that, but that's objective power. When you manage YouTube and you can decide who's controversial and who's not, and you can just look at all the black YouTubers that have had their shit taken down. And then you can look at someone like Alex Jones, who has threatening, maniacal rants where he sounds like he's ready to go out and shoot somebody. He sounds crazy. Well, he's still up. Just as many subscribers. He's starting to lose sponsors. I wonder who the hell. But that's it. That's power. That is power. And now the thing about white women is you have a lot more votes if you had an agenda coming from white women than you do white men. And the key example I want to touch on, and this is an example of just how far it goes and how you can manipulate this, but if you don't manipulate this, it will manipulate you. And I just want you to hear this example in relation to everything else that I've said. I was talking to this white woman on Twitter, And I'm kind of playing the devil's advocate because I know how things are going to lead. She was talking about Centoya Brown. And I did a video on Centoya Brown, how we are getting trolled by memes, that the memes about Centoya Brown are either not true or there is a larger conspiracy that we're not talking about. Now, assuming that there isn't a larger conspiracy, that she isn't getting framed, and I will accept the fact, if you don't know who Centoya Brown is, she was a woman who killed a John. She was 16, so I won't say she was a woman, but she was tried as a woman, and she shouldn't have been tried as a woman. But she was 16. She killed a John and stole his car, stole his wallet, and stole his guns. She said it was in self-defense because the guy was going to kill her or reaching for his gun. And she lost. And I see why. I mean, she shot him in the back of the head. It didn't really look like self-defense. And again, I'm not ruling out the possibility that there was some framework, because this was a white dude. Who knows how connected he was or whatever. But she ended up getting convicted, and she is looking at, I think, like 40 years or something ridiculous. She's already served like 6 or something like that. And the memes, and this is still going out, and I saw white women throwing this out, was that she was abused, which very well been true, but that she killed an abusive pimp who was raping her. Not that she went out on the street, lied about her age, picked up some dude who was dumb who, even if he carded her and she lied, well, he didn't card her unless she had a fake ID. But I don't think she had a fake ID. And again, the police could be lying, but according to the police, she lied about her age, and pretty much the rest of what I told you happened. Now, if we're going to stop and say, okay, police lie, okay, I agree, 100%. Police will lie, and they have racial bigotry, so they're quicker to lie on a black woman, black girl even. But the point I'm making is, even when I made that point to this woman, I started running into the cognitive dissonance where she was saying, you can't get me to believe what I want you to believe. And I think what it is she did not know. So when I'm telling her for the first time that, hey, this woman, we got people who are really innocent out there. We got people who are innocent being charged of bullshit. And this woman, we can't, it's hard for us to really hump for her because she robbed the dude afterwards. Now, if she would have just killed the guy in a fit of rage, he was slapping her or whatever, that's different. And even if it was self-defense, it's hard for us to really hump for somebody when they're killing and stealing. If they just kill somebody, maybe not. But she stole his car and all that. I can hump as far as I can say that it's excessive to ever try a kid as an adult. And it's the same with Michael Brown. Like with Michael Brown, I had to really pay attention to what went down in that store when it came out recently that he didn't steal those cigars, that they had an agreement with another person who worked at the store and he had already bought them. I wasn't that surprised because I knew that they didn't call the police on him. But if he really had, let's say he had strong-arm robbed the dude and then he walks out, then I'm looking at him a little bit different. You know what I mean? Then it's like it's kind of hard for us to use him as a example politically. Now, I studied that case to the point where I can do that. I think what happened to Michael Brown is a perfect example of what's wrong with the police, what's wrong with the way racism affects the criminal justice system. Perfect example. And with Centoya Brown, it might be a perfect example too, but we don't know to what extent the police are lying. So assuming that they're telling the truth, this was a self-defense argument that didn't hold up, and since she robbed the dude, it's robbery and murder. You're going to do some time for that. But the thing that I want to relay is this white woman was arguing for a black woman to be able to kill and rob a white man, to the point where she said, well, that she said that Cyntoia Brown was temporarily insane. Now, I could go along with that if the rest of the evidence was there and there wasn't theft involved. But it seems to me that you have that cognitive dissonance where I want to believe the meme and not the police report, which is fine. But if you're going to say that, then we got to look at the unintended consequences of this, especially with Cyntoia Brown, because she shouldn't have been tried as an adult. And I think at the very least, one thing that I'd be willing to bet happened is they let her incriminate herself in a way that they wouldn't have done to someone else, because she incriminated the hell out of herself. She shouldn't have she should have got a lawyer. She said too much before she had an attorney. And it ends up being just fiat. And if they really wanted to, they could have made an argument for why they should have gotten thrown out. There was a white dude who recently had, I think it was like 300 years of time. He was facing 300 years for pedophilia, and it all got thrown out because they failed to give him a speedy, well, they call it speedy, but I've seen people wait for years for a speedy trial and all that. They failed. They threw everything out. The dude is free now. You could look that up. Just look up those bullet points. It's probably easy to find. So the point I'm making is, you have white women who will argue to give black women the power to kill white men, just without even knowing exactly what went down. That is objective power, and that's one of the reasons why I feel it's a bit condescending to come out and say that black women are more powerful than white women. It's condescending. It's fantasy world. It's the flattering lie of feminism spun a different way. You have people who are fighting to give you the power to kill white men, as long as you say you were abused or whatever, as long as you can throw in some sister girl shit. Yet you want to destroy the system. I'm just, that doesn't make sense to me. The way I see it is, there is a lot of white guilt out there, because she was even going as far as to argue that this was economic abuse, even though the dude that Cyntoia Brown killed, he was making money. He was he did real estate. I looked up his profession, and you make basically $30,000 to $80,000 a year, depending on what kind of hits you're licking. And chances are, if he was trying to pull up on a streetwalker, he wasn't. He was making poor man John's mistakes. But it's not uncommon. They want to give you power, but they are incompetent. And they're incompetent, but that's no big deal. The problem is, you don't have a political agenda, because as a collective, you have women who want to even the playing field, and the only way it manifests is in something like Cyntoia Brown. It's not manifesting in something like a political agenda that would prevent me from saying, okay, now we might have to start thinking like the IRA. We need to start putting some bombs in people's cars and all that. Like I'm saying, we have the votes. when people say you're never going to get reparations, I'm like, you have the votes to get it right now. The problem is you are saying that you're not going to get it and you're wishing it into existence. And as long as your whole thing is you're never going to get it, you're walking right past this white woman who is arguing to give you the power to kill white men. And now she's the enemy, and she will manifest into the enemy because her sentiment will turn into votes that will give the police the ability to kill a dude that's just living with a woman and say, oh, he's a pimp, he's abusive. It'll add strife to relationships because now dudes are like, hey, you got the power to just say I'm abusive and kill me. Let me get some side chick pussy because this is all a game anyway. Yeah, all that extra strife. But I could be reaching there. Even though, hey, that's damn near all what MGTOW's about. And I'm one of those people that's anti-MGTOW. That's a completely different subject. But I mean, how are you going to build when you're going your own way? No, fool, you have to change laws so women are not so unattractive to you. Then you can build. In this type of thinking where we're going to give you the power to kill white men, you're damn sure going to give you the power to kill your black boyfriend. And that is what will come from this type of political sentiment because you don't have a power mindset. You don't have a political mindset to develop power. You don't have a political agenda that will lead to power. So I got an issue with this whole thing. If the problem is a police report, then the meme should be about the police report. Because what it comes down to is you have all this energy, and I won't even put it on feminism because I don't know, but you have someone arguing, and it's not just her. This was a pretty popular retweet. The story behind the meme is nothing compared to the eons in the smorgasbord, the conveyor belt of human rights violations in total. So if you're going to get passionate about that, you see what I mean? Do you really see what I'm talking about? Because I want to be clear. We have a lot of this power on our side, but it's being directed at something that really isn't going to do anything. Okay, let Cyntoia Brown out of jail right now. Okay. She's framed. Okay, if that happened, but we aren't doing anything about the people that framed her, and if she wasn't framed, she is not a good example of an injustice, because if she wasn't framed, it sounds to me that it's a hard sell for self-defense. That you shoot somebody in the back of the head while they're asleep and you take their shit. It's a hard self-defense sell. So you have this philosophy, fairness, whatever, that wants justice for people. It's misplaced because there's no political agenda to say, hey, get behind this if you want justice. Because we suffer. We have Cyntoia Browns. We have other people. We have different issues for a lack of power. Let's be real. Now, if you care about that, then we're going to have to do something about neighborhoods. And it's so misplaced because the whole thing, the whole meme on Cyntoia Brown is, it's her pimp. It's a black dude. It's her pimp. It's a black dude. It's still subtle criminalization of, hey, instead of this 16-year-old girl, let's go after the pimp, which will be a black dude. It's still in the spirit of that type of criminalization, which stagnates progress in communities, leading to Hoeing, Money's Tight, Gorilla Pimps, where you don't care if the chick is 16. Like, there's still a dude doing time over this too. As he should be. Why are you going to have a 16-year-old prostitute? Gorilla pimping is not the business, but there is no business. When there is no business, you do what you do. Let's deal with the fact that there is no business. Yeah, because I told this dude, he was talking about how non-white people struggle to assimilate into Western culture. I'm like, non-white people created Western culture while you're bullshitting. They created Western culture and really don't have any struggle to assimilate into. Is the whole key, what you just said, was non-white. Well, what is white? It's a creation. It's a creation used to segregate resources. That's all race is. Race is an opinion in force to segregate resources. But Western culture, that goes to why Egypt is whitewashed. That goes to why it's so invested to claim ancient Egypt. There's a quote, I forget who it's from, but it talked about how more than 1,000 Roman or Greek scholars studied in Egypt. And it's all the major players when it comes to philosophy. Just wanted to reinforce that, because when I say this is condescending, what I mean is, as a black man, you really do have to compete against that type of power. The power to say, hey, you may one day be able to accuse someone of rape, cop to 4 felonies, and no jail time. The Violence Against Women Act, tangible laws, family court laws, tangible laws. And then you say that white women don't have any power. Well, black men are having to compete against this power because it's real. Yeah, so it's real. Like, it's something that black men face. White men face it too, to a point. The thing is, as long as it's worse with other people, they'll bitch about it, but they won't do anything about it. At least that's my theory, because nothing, I don't expect them to do anything. I don't expect Trump presidency to address any men's rights issues. Matter of fact, you can mark my word on that. And the reason why is because